Hey, it's Angela over at Urbancore Pilates and Fitness, and today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 basic exercises that you should master before doing work on the reformer. So when everybody thinks Pilates, they think, oh, I want to work on the reformer, I want to lengthen and tone, but unfortunately they don't know how to stabilize their bodies properly before getting on the reformer, and they're not getting the full benefits of the system because of that. One of the main things we teach people to do in Pilates is to stabilize the pelvis and the low spine. So there's all these deep muscles that work to hold your spine and your pelvis in the right place, and if you don't have those on when you're using the progressive resistance of the springs, then you're not really able to engage your deep core muscles and you're not getting the therapeutic benefit of the system. You might feel good because you're moving around, you're moving in a lot of different directions, but you're not quite getting the more therapeutic benefits of the system. The 5 basic exercises we're going to do today are knee sways, bridges, chest curls, toe taps, and back extension. So the first exercise we are going to start with is called a knee sway. And the goal of the exercise is to stabilize the pelvis and the lower spine. So in Pilates, we don't breathe into the front of the diaphragm. So Allison, go ahead and breathe in the front of the diaphragm, and you see how her back arches and her ribs come up? That's what you want to try and avoid, okay? Because all of the deep abdominal muscles attach at the rib cage here from the front to the back. So instead, we're going to take a breath into the back of the diaphragm. So I usually put my hand here and I tell people to breathe into my hand, and then they'll feel the ribs sink, and then you'll feel the tailbone kind of sink into the mat. So in a knee sway, what we're going to do is we're going to bring the knees starting over to the right, keeping both shoulder blades on the mat. Allison's going to take a deep inhale into the back and sides of the lungs, and then as she exhales, she's going to start to bring the back of the ribs back first, delaying the legs. And she's going to deepen the muscles around the spine and a corset through the waist, and she's going to come back 1 vertebrae at a time, and her legs are going to be the last thing to come back. And then she's going to go again over to the left. She's taking an inhale here, her shoulder blades stay on the mat, and then she's going to exhale, and she's going to come back 1 vertebrae at a time, nice and slow, and she's going to delay her legs coming back, using the muscles around the spine and the deep abdominals activate. So if Allison was doing it wrong, this is how it would look. So Allison, go ahead and do what most clients do. So she's arching her back and lifting her shoulders up, and then her legs are just doing the movement over. And you see how there's not a sense of stabilization. There's a lot of instability, and there's a lot of, movement, but not a lot of stabilization. The second exercise we're going to do is called a bridge. So we start with a movement called a pelvic curl, and that's where you move the pelvis backwards on the femoral heads. So Allison, go ahead and move the pelvis backwards on the femoral head, zipping up the low abdominals. Good, and then bring it back. Now if you were doing that wrong, you would squeeze your butt really hard and your pelvis would come back, like that. So we're just moving the pelvis backwards on the femoral heads. And Allison, if you won't mind, I'm going to pull this up just a little bit so we could see the difference. Sorry, get fresh here. So if she curls and moves her pelvis backwards, her low back sinks into the mat. Now go ahead and do it where you're like squeezing your butt. So she's just squeezing her butt to lift, and you see her belly kind of pooches out. Sorry to get a little graphic here, but there's a huge difference. Okay, I'm going to trace you back again because it's not that kind of video. All right, so we start with the pelvic curl. She's going to do her pelvic curl. Now, she's going to keep the pelvic curl, and she's going to keep the ribs heavy, and she's going to start to articulate up 1 vertebrae at a time. And you'll notice how she's keeping the curl the entire time, and then when she can't go up any higher, she's going to activate her hamstrings to come up, so there's this nice line all the way through here. You guys can see that. And then she's going to roll down 1 vertebrae at a time, keeping the curl as she rolls down, keeping the stabilization. So you'll notice she's moving slow and very methodical and very controlled. So if Allison was going to do it wrong, this is how it looks. She's going to squeeze her butt, and she's going to arch her back. Oh my God, look at that. Now even the most novice person would look at that and say, that doesn't look quite right. So Allison, go ahead and do it again. And oh, that looks like it might hurt, right? And you might get injured. So, right, we want to avoid that. So remember, deep breath into the back of the diaphragm. Exhale, curl, deepen the low abdominals. Start to articulate up one vertebrae at a time. See, it's nice and smooth and continuous. The lines are nice and smooth. She's going to keep her ribs down and curl under, and then she's going to get her hamstrings on to finish the movement. So there's one line from the shoulders to the knees. Beautiful. Now, if you've mastered those two exercises, you should be able to go on to the next exercise. And by master, I mean doing it with correct technique. So we're going to do something called toe taps. So Allison's going to bring her legs into a shelf position. Now, when she's in that shelf position, she's going to make sure her ribs are anchored and her sacrum is anchored and her abdominals are really active here. So she's going to keep all that stabilization, and she's going to then lower her leg down towards the mat, keeping that stabilization around the spine, just holding it really stable, holding the ribs stable, holding the pelvis stable. And then she's going to drag the leg in as if she's dragging it through wet cement. Good. So nice and slow and controlled, lots of stabilization happening there. And then she's going to go down, and then exhale back up. Now, if she were to do this incorrectly, her back would arch and her leg would just come down. And she's just letting the weight of her leg come down. And of course, if you let the weight of your leg come down, your back is going to arch, right? So you have to do it properly, create your own resistance through stabilization of the low spine and the pelvis. Excellent job. Now she's going to make it more challenging the next time by doing both legs. So both legs are going to go down. Look, she's working really hard here. All the focus is there, and she's going to exhale, pull back in, maintaining her stabilization. Great job. That's a lot of effort. And lower down, and then exhale back up. Good, one more time. All right, the next thing we're going to do is called the chest curl, which most people might know as a crunch, but we're going to do it like Pilates style crunch. Okay, so she's going to keep her shoulders integrated onto her back. She's going to keep her neck long. Then she's going to fold up through the line of the armpit, coming up through the lateral line of the body and feeling the ribs really anchor into the mat. Good. So she's maintaining that stabilization, the ribs are dropping. Good. And she's going to lower back down. And then again, she's going to exhale, lift. And then lower, and again, exhale, lift. And lower. So if Allison were to do it wrong and overuse her neck, this is how it would look. Just coming up with the neck, right? I'm maybe using my superficial abdominals a little bit, but I'm mostly using my neck. Or if Allison were to do it flattening her back into the mat without maintaining her neutral spine, this is how it would look. You see she's curling her tailbone every time, and she's slamming her back into the mat and only using her superficial abdominals. So you'd want to avoid those two pitfalls. Okay, next exercise we're going to do is called back extension. So it's the opposite plane of movement to what we were just doing. So she's going to lay on her stomach. She's going to bring her arms up over her head and make a little triangle. Okay? So she's going to push her pubic bone into the mat, lengthening the low back so she doesn't put a lot of stress on the low back. So Allison, go ahead and come up just cranking into your low back. So if I were just cranking up into my low back, that's how it would look, just over stabilizing here. So I'm going to show you how not to do that. So she's going to push her elbows into the mat, and she's going to widen the shoulder blades on the back. Keeping the shoulder blades wide in the back, pushing the elbows in the mat, she's going to deepen the belly and lift up, and she's maintaining length in her spine as she lifts to avoid the pitfall of cramming into the low back. Good. So you can see it's a nice long line from the crown of the head to the tailbone, and she's not overarching her back. And then she's going to keep that length, and then she's going to lower back down. So what we're trying to do with the spine is to avoid compression of the discs and spine, and we're trying to keep length and hold the stability as we lift. Good. Just lifting up. So if you take the time to master those 5 exercises, you're going to set yourself up with a nice solid core and a good foundation for being able to do reformer work. So knowledge is power. Take the time to master the basics, and then you'll have a solid foundation for moving forward to more advanced exercises.